pyramid of consciousness, specific to our course and specific to Pavel Piskarev. It's not going to be, of course, the pyramid that we not like this, of course, but it will be just presented by a triangle, which shows all the layers that we have to, all the layers that we'll discuss now. So we'll start with drawing. This is a simple triangle, and that reflects the entire theory. Here's our consciousness is divided in different levels. You know the structure. You've seen it online, and it's a common knowledge that we have. Here's conscious, the mind. It's conscious, and everything else is like iceberg. It's subconscious. And that's where dealing in our life. And the bottom of this pyramid is, of course, a huge, what we call absolute. I'm sorry. You can hear this. I don't know working. I didn't anticipate that interference. Please let me know whether you can hear me. You can hear me. Can you hear me well? My voice? Okay. 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 A little bit more difficulties, but we'll continue. Okay. So we have to move it along. Yes. So when we talk about what is pyramid of consciousness, we know that the conscious mind is about, we calculate 5-9%, and the rest, the best, it's 90%. Like the iceberg is hidden underneath our, that's a separate, the divide, and there's controlling mind that doesn't allow us to go through. So, but what is mind, our working, also it's called working memory, what it consists of. So of course, on the very tip of the iceberg is our moment, the moment of now. This how we get connected with the environment. This everything that happens right now, right in this moment. Everything that you're experiencing. You're experiencing hearing my voice. You're experiencing my I know, cutting machine. You experience probably the light, seeing the computer screen, the light, your senses. You feel either comfortable or not very comfortable sitting on your chair. The thoughts that enter your mind. So everything that we're dealing right now, that's all this our sensory information that we perceive and that enters our system. You remember that impression, like five, that we always talked about, those elements, emotional. So sensory elements, it happens right now. So that's why it's based, if you think about the importance of now, the more energy, the more attention we pay to this attention now, the productive we are in the world. That's why you know the system, a practice of mindfulness. Be in the present moment, be now, meaning perceiving information as it is, and based on that, operate in our world. And I mentioned the word energy. So where does energy come from? It comes from the source. You can call it absolute. You can call it the source, God, the self, Allah. in every culture, specific culture and spiritual studies have this name for this big, unknown, infinite, that the source of everything, that give us energy. And that energy enters and it flows up. It nourishes our life. Without its energy, there is no life. But as you can see, there is a big difference between this infinite source of energy and how little we get there. Of course, if we could get the entire scope, the entire range of this energy, we would have been like God. We would have been a absolute itself. We would have been dissolved in it and happy and like nirvana, state of nirvana, if you're familiar with the term. But this doesn't happen because we have many filters of consciousness that prevents all this information in very different ways, prevent and affect the flow of this energy. So if our goal in this life, in any other life, to be present, to be in this, is the moment of now, and to absorb and to be able to process and to make this energy flow. So it's not that we're just absorb it. We just the idea is that the energy is coming through us. We receive it and to give it. And the more we can receive, the more we can give. I said it's not new, but that's probably every spiritual system is based on. And the more energy we get, the more of this life force we get, Kundalini, you can talk about it. The more we get, the better we can function in this life. And our life is better, our health is better, our emotions are healthier. So that's why now we'll refer to this idea of what prevents this flow of energy, of this force. So, okay, so if we are talking about levels, and I will draw these levels. So we have, but this is also what yes, this is the present levels of conscious mind. If this is the present of now, this what we can talk 5-9%. It's just not now the full attention now. It also consists of our working memory, operational. You can think about it as like RAM, or it's like working memory. It's everything that we can use daily, and we don't have to have access to anything else. It's an available immediately, right now. You know your name, you know your image, you can recognize your family, you know your work, your skills, your you know how to cook. You don't have to think. It's like such a quick access. So it's functional right now, no thinking, including habits, including our professional knowledge, and that's all these household duties. That's what's happening right now, and it's readily accessible. It's in the exist right now. But everything else, it's hidden. It's in our deep subconscious, which we have no access to. And if this one's okay, so I'll put layers. This subconscious is hidden by the barrier that we can't go through. And whatever affects us, we don't. You remember that when we had it was in our basic user course, we drew this snowman, and you said sensory information filters And all this was creating impression and how impressions affect our judgment. So all this, even if we're able to function and we're conscious and we make conscious and logic decision, but quite often, most of the time, we don't know what affects our decision. There is something happens, and everybody knows. We know we all studied technology. We're all familiar with this topic. What happens that, like upon perception, those filters, that memory that's filled, this individual consciousness is filled with memories, and that those memories, those elements push from through this barrier and affects our decisions daily. So this barrier, it's called, if you know, if you studied any spiritual system, the getting there and understanding why you have to break through this barrier. The process of awakening, spiritual awakening, it's being able to access deep in your subconscious, become one. Then when this barrier stops existing, that's what probably those in this course, and I'm not surprised if you found me and we connected here together. I know that everyone in this course is after that, a moment that there will be no barrier, when there is no barrier between our conscious and subconscious mind, when we know how our decisions come, that we have access to nature, universe, and absolute. However, meanwhile, when we're still learning, and we're trying to, with very different tools, to apply different tools to make our lives better. That's why Neurographica could be considered as spiritual practice, because it helps us in its modest ways to access that, to help us on our path to awakening, to better life, to happiness. So this I'm talking about here is our individual memory. This individual memory is also divided into two. It's what you to do with you as a person. And divided into two. The first part is like current life. So this individual level. So this current life, and this past life, and divided into two. Well, with respect to past life, it's not proven by systems. There are no, but as you probably know, where everybody now talks about past life, yes, they exist, and we live much longer than this life. But even the current life, or this life, creates enough problems. As a scientist discovered that the human scans perceives about 40,000 events a day from birth until death. 40,000 events daily. They're never forgotten. They're always get stored in our memory, in our consciousness. And of course, all those events could be divided. We start judging, good or bad, pleasant, unpleasant, useful, unuseful. And that's very good, because the human mind, that's what actually the human mind does. This is how we became civilized people, because of enabled us to make this distinction and survive so long. There are plus and minus in having those judging filters, in this ability to judge what's good or what's bad. A system preserves us. We're able to analyze, to predict events and to make decisions ahead of time. No animal can do that. For example, if a herd of zebras, they're just sitting there and they're grazing grass. They don't care about lions that are going to attack them. But as soon as they hear a bark, as soon as they hear a noise, they run away and then they stop. And then they continue eating again. No problem. But the human being save this information in our mind, always remembering about those lines that we have in our lives. It could be a boss, it could be our spouse, anything. And that affects our decision because we know that something affected us in a different way, and based on that, we make a decision. Yes, that's good because that kind of judgment, that division on good or bad, useful or not useful, enables us to survive as the human civilization. Actually, when it's everything with working memory, and those 5-9%, no one really knows how many, but approximately it assumed that amount of information because there are devices that could scan our brain scans that can estimate that amount. So that as far as the conscious mind goes and processes in the brain, that could be detected by devices. But many other things is just like approximation, estimation based on some observations. So then we're going, so we have our individual consciousness, and then that's also, so in, of course, that energy, when we're talking about energy, as soon happens the process. Here's the process. As soon as the energy comes, and we view event, and this energy is manifested as an event, and we accept this event and consider it good, it's positive to me. We accept it, and energy flows and fills us with energy. Energy passes through. But as soon as we have, okay, well, I don't accept it. I don't like it. It's not good for me. As soon as we disagree, the energy stops flowing because it's it's our ego. It's our, what we call one of the scenes, like so-called scenes, human pride. When we start judging, I know better than the absolute. I know better than oneness. I know what's good or bad for me, and I do not accept it. That's why the term of acceptance is if we accept it, absolutely everything, like the energy would have flown through us and filled us with abundance in infinite life source. Again, so we can, with the Neurographica, with the algorithm of Neurographica, enables us to go, so we're dealing with individual subconsciousness, and I'll explain how just in a few minutes. And then we meet not only that individual subconscious, but there is also collective subconsciousness. Collective, which is also divided in two levels. And one of them could be considered divided, what we call, it's more egregor. Egregor. I hope you're familiar with this term. So egregor is a concept that represents a thought form or collective group mind. It's a psychic entity which is made up of influence and thought of a group of people. And so egregor, examples of egregor. Okay, we are studying Neurographica. We belong to a certain mindset. We're familiar with each other in this way through this system. Another egregor, national. We're Americans, we live in America, or Europe, we live in Europe. There are Russians, there are Jews, those national. There also could be generations, for example, baby boomers, and probably here where we are, that's why it's so easy for us to understand each other. But there are also millennials. There are also people younger, they're born right now. That's all. That's it's cultural, and it deals with real. Egregors are real. There's another next level, and it's narrower, like it's but there are also um, system collective subconsciousness that's much wider, and they call them myth. They are much more international because they belong to the entire humanity. The entire humanity, yes, there is a different cultural differences, but understanding exists there. And here we have the term archetype. 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 With archetype, you're familiar with the term archetype. I mentioned it a few times when we were drawing. It's a second 4-2, step 4-2, when we were talking about big figures, integrating into creating archetype. I didn't want to emphasize it too much, but now we will be able to talk about it in a much better sense because we will understand this pyramid and we can use it uh, well, as it sinks in, will be much better, easy for you to understand the step of the basic algorithm. So what is archetype, also called the prototype? In Jungian psychology, it's a collective inherited unconscious idea, pattern of thoughts, image universally present in individual psyche. Example, the hero, the dreamer, Cinderella, the creator, femme fatale, travelers. All those images that they could be presented and fairy tales in every nation, in every culture. But they are very similar in their concept, and everybody will understand it. The names are different, labels are different, but the concept is the same. So they belong to the entire humanity, and they're much wider than just egregor. And here also exists something that, for example, egregor, we very much we know, okay? Something that we like with plus sign. Okay, we have a plus sign because we are the same. We understand people. And the more egregors we can combine, like for example, my classmates and those people who um, followed me in another profession, they're artists. Okay, I had some classmates, we studied together, now we became artists. Of course, and there's plenty of understanding between us. People who read the same book, the same generation. Okay, I used to like classical literature, and those people who read classical literature are almost like my friends. It's very easy for us to understand each other. But there are, of course, what we consider foreign, something that we don't understand. And that's the same as what happens on our individual uh, individual subconscious. The same happens in this sense, in this egregor, this collective subconscious, we accept all and energy flows We don't accept, and the energy doesn't flow. It comes and whatever and looks for where it can flow. Luckily, it can flow some other way. And the same with myth. We have myth that we understand that belong to us. We have plus, maybe small plus, and minus. Something that we do not accept, we do not understand. And as soon as we do not understand, consider something like foreign to us, the energy doesn't flow. Its separation exists in all these different levels, and as soon as it feels separation, the energy stops flowing. So what could we do if this is such interesting system? So you might ask about how we can deal with it, but let's go a little bit deeper down when we. So all these individual, including our working memory and individual subconsciousness and collective, that all our that belongs to human. It doesn't exist in nature. It's something that belongs only to the human being. If all the humans were put together on some kind of space ship and sent away, no egregors, no myth, no current and past would have existed. But there would be existing something else, that what we're going to talk about and what becomes the subject of this course. Those are the elements. There are 5 elements. So the first of the elements, you're probably familiar with those elements. They are wood. I'll name them later. Now I'll just apply a few colors before proceeding, so just to make the drawing brighter. Providing I can find my pencil. I just color them for now. This is silver, red, and dark blue. Okay. So those elements that present the energy. When we talk about, I mentioned about that all the humans will be removed from the earth. There would be no myth and uh, archetypes, because it's a part of our human psyche. We could think about it, they were acquired by our culture, by our upbringing. But not exactly. I wouldn't say that it's completely true. So with the idea that elements affect and create certain predisposition at the moment of our birth, and we are born on a different element. It's an old system. Like I'm using the system of the 5 elements, which is a Chinese system and exists in other cultures. But Chinese system, why they're using as they're learning, studying it in the course, it's because it's mostly the best explained and preserved and mostly used. Feng Shui is based on that, but there are other similar systems. So those elements, is quite often they, the zodiac is the Chinese system divided. We have division, and where you can start talking about, oh, I was born in the year of a wooden snake. Okay, somebody was born in the year of a metal tiger, or like a fire bull, or whatever. So every is yes. So a question about those elements, they are based on the observation of nature. And of course, with a little bit of mythology to label it, but they are based on the cycles observed in nature. And about the cycles, I will talk just in the next topic. So we have these 5 elements affected. So it's possible, if that were not possible to change, if that was everything we were predetermined from birth, that will be the end of our conversation. There's no point of talking about changes, and the course is over. But since we can influence our system to make something change, to work better, we are studying it. So when elements, of course, different elements, we have from birth, we have predisposition for certain myths, and of course we are born in certain egregors as existing. How could we change it without referring to elements? It's very easy. Like for egregor, how we can expand our acceptance, state of feeling friendly. Study, example, traveling. Study various languages, various cultures. Read literature from various cultures, from various languages. Cuisine, cooking from different cultures, and watching movies, dancing, meeting other people, studying, exploring various way of how other people live. The idea how you can affect and become more acceptance of the level of myth that is more like innate. I would say that myth it's more difficult. Yes, for example, myth we could think about who we can think about myth and archetype. Well, an image but well, women here, Aphrodite, Diana, Athena. So all those Greek from goddesses that every woman can relate in a certain way because we have affinity with some of them more, some of them less. How we can every woman, of course, once you put a little bit makeup, beautiful dress, and high heel shoes and go out, yes, everybody woman will feel like an Aphrodite. Yes, that's easy. It's easy to affect even by the way we dress and the way we behave. Now we go back to work, we start using time management. We have responsibilities. We become more like Athena, that goddess of wisdom and war and art. And of course, love of nature. Diana, beautiful. You go outside, you love nature, you ride bicycle, and you feel like a beautiful goddess. So all that it's possible to explore, and as you incorporate more elements of those elements in your life, the more you understanding you create for others, for other people and other cultures. So the elements, uh, they are not only colors, but they're also the colors present different qualities. I mentioned on the very early days, and the very probably at the end of this, not so much on the basic course, but a course that we studied the composition. The color, one color represents this, another color represents that, but that's it's so. Oh, now I can see what's going on. Unfortunately, they're trimming the hedge just in front of my window. Okay, talking about disturbances. Okay, so let's go back. They're not only, it would be useless to talk one color. You see, if you apply green is creativity, red is fire. That was it's just a very simple talk. The qualities, those elements represent different qualities, and the qualities that we're going to study in this course, that becomes like opening to this course that we're going to do today. So that, and as you can see, elements are very close to that absolute, and there is no, and the energy goes through it completely. There is no, unless it's, by birth, there is less resistance, and that way also how to affect our elements with colors. We're going to study in this course because it's also possible, but combining different colors and thinking about it and certain behaviors is possible to affect. So before going to the next topic, so the colors is a visual representation of this energy, pure energy that flows from the source up. Well, up, it's just visually. This is actually, this is elements, this is the first division. As absolute, as oneness, God, there's no division here, and this the elements create the first division.